We are now with Fran Kowaleski. Fran is the Democratic candidate for the Register of Wills of Lackawanna County. Good morning, Fran. Thanks for joining us today.
Thank you for having me.
We're happy that you're here with us. So we're going to start out by covering just a little bit of information from your bio. So you were born and grew up in Scranton.
That's correct.
Graduated from St. Patrick's High School in West Scranton, but you've been in Jessup for a long time. I think you said 40 years, right?
40 years.
And you have spent the last over 18 years, as the Deputy Director of the Register of Wills.
That's correct.
Some of your community service, you're past president of St. Joseph's Auxiliary and a board member there also. And because I've said it on someone else, I need to say it for you as well, a founding member of the Society of Irish Women as well. So we're going to start with just a couple of questions. We've already reviewed some information from your bio, including work history and education. Tell me what differentiates you from your opponent in this race. Why are you the best candidate for this position?
Well, I have the experience that the other candidate does not have. I also have a proven record of accountability with public monies. We are an office that collects, in the last 5 years, we've collected $68 million in inheritance tax, of which the office gets a commission. And so we have an accountability, we have a track record. The Auditor General does a mandate that every 3 years there is an audit. The audit, in the past 20 years, we have not so much as had a finding or an observation. So I have a proven record to deal with the financial end of it, as well as the administration end of it, along with customer service.
Okay. Fran, I'm going to read the description of the Register of Wills position from the Home Rule Charter. The Register of Wills shall retain and exercise those powers granted by general law to Register of Wills in counties whose population is most equal to that of Lackawanna County. He shall have the power to appoint clerks and a solicitor. The Register of Wills shall prepare for inclusion in the administrative code an article setting forth the structure, organization, manner, operational procedures whereby the office of the Register of Wills operates and functions. So this is what is written in our Home Rule Charter, which was adopted in 1976. And as you can tell, it's pretty vague. The day-to-day operations are set out in the administrative code. So for those of us who may not know what goes on in the Register of Wills office, what do you see as the primary responsibilities of the office?
Well, what the Home Rule Charter doesn't list there is that also the Register of Wills is a dual office. We are the Register of Wills / Clerk of the Orphans Court. So we are an office that functions under the Register of Wills title, but in essence, it is the Register of Wills / Orphans Court. The Orphans Court part of the office encompasses adoptions, guardianships, and marriage licenses. The Register of Wills section of the office deals with estate work, probates of wills or letters of administration that comes in once someone passes. The family will bring in the will. If there is such a will, there could be a contest to the will. We hold hearings in our office. We are the first step to the judiciary, where you would come in. Sometimes people lose wills. You have older individuals in your office that come in and they don't know what either the wife or the cousin or someone, they've lost the will, they can't find it. And so then we will hold a hearing on that, and the first level of that starts with our office. If they appeal our decision to probate either a photocopy of the will or whatever the dispute is, they can then move to the higher court, which is the county court. And if they appeal the county court's decision, they move to Superior Court. And in my 20 years, or close to 20 years in the office, we have never lost an appeal. So we follow the letter of the law, and so therefore we stand, for the most part, without any issues as far as what we do in the office once it is appealed.
Okay. Fran, the next question is two parts. So I'm going to ask you, the first part is to discuss a problem, and then the second part would be to address how you would address the problem. So for the first part, what do you feel is the most pressing problem that's facing this office right now?
Well, as always, I believe the financial end, trying to get funds to complete the scanning work that needs to be done. The digitalized record is something that I would love to see totally complete in our office. Whether it will ever get there because of cost, you know, it is a factor. We are working diligently to do it.
Okay, so then what unique or innovative ideas do you have to address this problem? How are you going to solve it?
Well, what we're doing right now, we've had a reduction in staff because of the digitalization. And so we use the taxpayers' money as far as keeping these things in check. As digitalization moved forward, what we found out, Andrea, was the fact that we had less foot traffic. People can look at these records at home. So therefore, we reduced the staff. And now what we're finding is it has sort of had an impact on the project end of the staff. Keeping the place day-to-day operations with a small staff is about what we can do. We are looking to see if there are some ways of which we can start small projects. Implement if there's any downtime at all during the day, of which right now I can tell you there's very little, but that we could maybe get a half hour here and a half hour there to start a project and see if we can get some of this scanning work done in-house without outsourcing it.
Okay. Fran, as you know, there's a Home Rule Charter Study Commission seated now looking at reviewing Lackawanna County's Home Rule Charter, which includes, obviously, this office as well. Pertaining to that, should the Register of Wills continue to be an elected position, and why do you feel that way?
Well, I do believe that the Register of Wills office should be an elected office. I think the voters spoke in May in the primary that said they want their row offices to be an elected position.
Okay. Fran, as you know, I'm sure you've read and understand from the public that public trust in elected officials has been impacted by recent events in our region. How will you maintain the public's trust if you're elected?
Well, I believe that I have a proven record. As I said earlier in this interview, that we collect probably in any given year anywhere from 14 to 16 million in inheritance tax. We have a budget of about $750,000. We are audited continually, and we have had a clean, beautiful record, of which I'm very proud of. Everything is on the up and up. Every dime is accounted for. Anyone that walks into our office, if you give us money for any item, so much as even $1, you get a paper receipt back. So I have a proven record to say that, you know, there is an accountability in our office, has always been, and will continue.
All right. Fran, that actually concludes all of our questions for you today, so you have time for your closing statement. And please feel free to cover any area that we did not ask you about that you want the voters to know about. Okay,
thank you. The Register of Wills and Orphans Court of Lackawanna County is a dual office. We have in-house scanned over 300,000 marriage licenses with no additional cost to the taxpayers. We have worked and scanned Register of Wills and Orphans Court records from 1979 to the current. All of these records, Orphans Court and Register of Wills, are on the website, the county website at www.lackawannacounty.org, free of charge to the public. I believe that in itself, in this day and age, that we are number 5 in the country for a county our size, to have this type of record online for our citizens free is almost unheard of. We have worked very hard to do this, continued to work to get the records scanned so that they are opened to the public. This is their office. They pay our salaries. Nothing happens in our office that isn't a we team. We work as a team. I may manage the office, but it's the cooperation of the staff and management to work together to go to the end goal for the taxpayer to make sure that we give the best service possible to the taxpayers of Lackawanna County. I would like to say that I am married for 43 years. I have a husband, Ken. I have 3 sons and 9 grandchildren. It has been a pleasure, Andrea, today being here, and I appreciate the time.
Thank you so much. That concludes our time with Fran Kowaleski. Again, Fran is the Democratic candidate who will be on the ballot for the Register of Wills position in Lackawanna County. Don't forget to vote on November 5th. And Fran, thanks for joining us today.
Thank you for having me.
We're here now with Chris Arnone. Chris is the Republican candidate for the Register of Wills of Lackawanna County. Chris, welcome. Thanks for joining us today.
Thank you for having me. Thank you.
We're happy to have you here. So we're going to talk a little bit about who you are, and then we'll move into some questions after that. So just a couple things from your bio. Born and raised in Scranton, and a graduate of Scranton Central High School, which of course we now know is Lackawanna College, but was Scranton Central back then when both of us went to school. You have your degree in criminal justice and sociology from the University of Scranton with minors in both history and political science. And you earned your law degree at St. John's University School of Law in New York.
That's correct.
All right. Right now, you've been a practicing lawyer for quite a while, and you have 2 offices, our known law offices and our known Social Security Law Group, and you're both in Scranton and in Jefferson Township. You have been in the past the Assistant City Solicitor for Scranton and an auditor for South Abington Township, and you are currently the auditor of Jefferson Township, which is an elected position, but that position will expire, so there's no conflict with running for the office right now. Okay. All right, so that's a little bit about who you are. So let me ask you, we've already reviewed information from your bio, including your work history and education, a little bit of that. What differentiates you from your opponent in this race? Why are you the best candidate?
Well, I believe that being formally trained and formally educated in this area, practicing for over 20 years, doing wills, estates, probating estates, I think that adds a knowledge to me that I just don't know that it's out there elsewhere. I'm dealing with clients, hearing directly from them what their needs are, what their problems are, what their concerns are. One of which, the most important issue that I hear almost every client is, I have to come to Scranton between 9 and 4. I can't make it, I work. I live in Carbondale. Why my goal eventually is to look into having a traveling office as well as having extended hours here in Lackawanna County.
Okay, thank you. Chris, as you know, the Register of Wills office is created through the Lackawanna County Home Rule Charter. So I'm going to read what the piece of the Home Rule Charter says about this particular office, and then we'll talk about that on the other end. So in the Home Rule Charter, it says, the Register of Wills shall retain and exercise those powers granted by general law to Register of Wills in counties whose population is most equal to that of Lackawanna County. He shall have the power to appoint clerks and a solicitor, and the Register of Wills shall prepare for inclusion in the administrative code an article setting forth the structure, organization, manner, operational procedures whereby the office of the Register of Wills operates and functions. So that's the description from the Home Rule Charter, which of course was adopted in 1976. And it's pretty vague. Predominantly, everything should be spelled out in the administrative code, which can be changed, but this is what's actually, in the Home Rule Charter. What do you see, for those of us who really don't understand what the Register of Wills is responsible for, what do you see as the primary responsibilities of this office?
People ask me all the time and going to events and meeting persons. What do? What does a Register of Wills do? They file wills? It's much more than that. The Register of Wills office is the Orphans Court clerk, Guardianship Court, and the Marriage License Bureau. They're responsible for holding documents back to holding, protecting, and maintaining documents back to the late 1800s. What's most important, however, in the office is, as a Register of Wills, their responsibility is to probate or check and verify the authenticity of a will. The Register of Wills is able to do that, sign in the correct person. However, if there is a dispute between family members or whomever as to the authenticity of a will, the Register of Wills would be the person who has to decide how that would be decided as to who is correct as to the status of the will. What I'm looking to bring to the office is I'm a lawyer. Not that I'm any better than anybody else, but if that will is further disputed after going to the Register of Wills, it has to go to court. Only a lawyer can actually go in the courtroom and litigate a case. I would like to be in that office rather than hiring outside counsel to do that. And I think that is the most important position for the Register of Wills.
Okay, thank you. Chris, the next question is two parts. So first I'm going to ask you to identify a problem, and then I'm going to ask you about how you'll address it. So the first part is, what do you feel is the most pressing problem facing this office?
Lack of ambition. With all due respect, my opponent, I was a little surprised. My opponent, 18 years in that office, nothing more than, number one, we answered the phones ourselves. Number two, we were audited and it came clean. As John Q. public tax payer, I would expect nothing more. And three, we digitalized the entire computer system. Everything is online now. Well, that was a state mandate. Matter of fact, it was paid for by the state to have an outside company do primarily just that. And I find it disheartening that we just don't have anywhere to proceed other than the quote in the newspaper of my opponent, I believe, was to just finish some things up. I'm looking to bring insight. I'm looking to bring new ideas. I'm willing to bring in fresh ideas into that office.
So the second part of that, you have alluded to it, is what unique or innovative ideas do you have that would address the problem?
Well, number one, I would like to have a traveling office. In doing this, I've been doing wills for over 20 years. Most of my clients are elderly. A lot of my clients are from out of the area. A lot of my clients work all day long. So to tell my client that they have to come to Scranton between the hours of 9 and 4, and actually it's earlier than 4 because they have to be in there for at least an hour, so say 9 to 3, is difficult for them. I'm looking to A, extend hours, and I'm looking B, to have a traveling office to meet individuals in other areas of the county. And further, as I said before, having a lawyer in that office is something I would like to bring to the table, that we're spending less money by actually having someone there that can do the job when wills are contested.
Okay, thank you. Chris, as you know, we've talked about the office being created by the Home Rule Charter. And currently, there is a Home Rule Charter Study Commission seated for Lackawanna County, which will be looking at the structure of county government, including the Register of Wills. So my question for you is, should the Register of Wills continue to be an elected position? Why or why not?
I definitely believe it should be an elected position. I campaigned heavily for the office during my primary election. As I was unopposed during the primary, I spent most of my time campaigning for keeping that office open. How many people didn't realize they were going to be disenfranchised of having someone to look over that office? I spoke a few weeks ago at Mr. Volpe's commission study and addressed the issue as to him looking into the offices that now stand. Mr. Volpe has indicated, although it is within his purview, he has no intention whatsoever into looking into those offices. He believes strongly that the people themselves have spoken to that issue.
Okay. Chris, public trust in elected officials has been impacted by recent events throughout our region. How will you maintain the public's trust if you're elected?
I think that office doesn't exactly lead to an issue of considering a problem such as we've had in the county. However, I would run, I was auditor in Clark Summit. I am auditor in Jefferson Township. I think things do need to be reviewed and looked at and need to have a strict policy.
Okay. Chris, that's actually all the questions that we have for you. So we invite you to give your closing statement now. And please include any other issues or topics that we have not covered that you think it's important for the voters to know about.
I appreciate it. I would like the voters to know a little more about me. I went to law school full-time in New York City on a full academic scholarship, while working almost full-time for a lawyer here in Scranton, Pennsylvania. I've worked every day since the weekend after I turned 16 years of age. I graduated law school. I worked for a lawyer for a number of months who had already been working for as a paralegal 3 years before that, again during law school. Opened my own practice, was able to open a second practice. I think I have the work ethic, I have the desire, and I have the drive to do just that.
Okay. Well, that concludes our time with Chris Arnone. Chris, thank you so much for joining us here today.
Thank you very much.
Don't forget to vote on November 5th. And Chris, again, is the Republican candidate for the Lackawanna County Register of Wills.